All right, welcome back. Now, the Federal Inland Revenue Service has been dealing with the challenge of tax evasion for a long time. You'll recall that sometimes last year, chairman of the tax agency, Babatunde Fala, says over 6,000 billionaires in the country either have no taxpayer identification number or have not filed any tax returns at all. The agency has also published names of nearly 20,000 tax defaulters, including individuals and top corporate entities in the country. Recently, Mr. Fowler announced that a whopping $15 billion is the total amount Nigeria is currently losing to tax evaders. And this amount, when converted, totals around 5.4 trillion naira. That's a lot of money going down the drain for a country that is still struggling with revenue generation to fund its proposed 2020 budget. To tackle this problem, the FIRS boss says the agency would implement the first automatic exchange of information standard by 2020. According to him, this will improve transparency in tax administration, increase the tax revenue collection, enhanced effectiveness and efficiency in service delivery. Let's now discuss it further. I'm being joined on the program by Taiwo Oluide, who's the head of tax PwC West Africa. He joins us from another part of Lagos. Mr. Oyedele, thank you very much for joining us on the program. 5.4 trillion naira. That's a whole lot of money that would make a huge difference if we were getting that in tax.
That is correct. That is correct. To put it in context, the 5.4 trillion is actually more than the highest amount the FRS ever collected, which was 5.3 trillion naira collected in 2018. But the reality is, these are estimates. And in fact, maybe if we have more data that is reliable, the figure is likely to be more than that. And I said that because of two reasons. One, if you look at Nigeria's tax to GDP ratio, is currently at 6%. Comparable economies around the world, South Africa, and even smaller economies are in the range of 20 and even more than 20%. So you can imagine if you compare Nigeria at 20% to GDP ratio, that is easily 14% of our GDP. Now, 14% of our GDP at around 130 trillion easily will give you a lot more than the 5.4 trillion. So the gap is maybe somewhere even around 10 to 15 trillion naira. So it is that significant. The other way to look at this is the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, with support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, conducted a national study about taxpayers' perception. And we found out that nearly 70% of businesses, exactly 69% of businesses, do not see anything wrong with tax evasion. And in fact, it's even worse when you are dealing with individuals. Nearly 83% of Nigerians believe that tax evasion is either not wrong or is wrong but understandable. Now, with this level of the low level of tax morale, it is not surprising that Nigeria is losing a lot to tax evasion. I think that the estimate by the FRS boss is even on the conservative side.
Now, something else. Look, we often hear people say the reason why some people choose not to pay taxes is just because they don't see what the government is doing with the money. But it's an excuse that's been there for a very, very long time. And to me, I consider that excuse a very lame one. What do you think we need to actually, or the government needs to do actually, to get people to begin to pay, to get people, probably force them to comply?
Yeah, you're right. I think the easy excuse is we do not see what government is doing with the money. But in the study that was conducted by the NESG, the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, we also found out from Nigerians that the number one reason why they don't want to pay their taxes is that they do not trust government, and they trust tax officials even less. So the most untrusted level of government is the local government in Nigeria, followed by the state government and then the federal government. Now, when taxpayers don't trust government, it is difficult to part with your hard-earned money for someone you do not trust.
But just hold on. Look, yes. I know the issue of trust is very important, no doubt. But the fact is that,
Yeah.
look, we can't deny the fact that, look, even if the government was doing everything with what it gets, the fact is that some Nigerians will still not pay. Some Nigerians would certainly not want to pay.
Yes, I think it's not peculiar to Nigeria. Almost everywhere in the world, nobody is, I don't know of so many people who are excited to go and pay their taxes. But the reason why they pay is a combination of factors. One is the issue of trust, not getting social services, but on the other hand is the issue of enforcement and using data to compel people to comply. The reason why, if you're an American living in the US, you want to pay your taxes is because you know there will be consequences if you do not pay, or whether you live in the UK or whether you live somewhere in Europe. Now, what tends to happen in Nigeria, which also came out from that study, is the fact that Nigerians believe that penalties are not a deterrent, either because they are not applied consistently or government chooses who they apply it to, such that especially the big men and big women, like we call them in Nigeria, the people who are highly connected, can get away with not paying taxes. Now, we also find out from the Auditor General's recent audit that even the presidency in Nigeria, as well as the National Assembly, have not been fully compliant in remitting the taxes they deducted on their employees as well as their contractors in form of VAT and withholding tax. Now, when this gets into the press, the impression it creates for the rest of the society is, why should I be the one paying? So for us, I think it's a combination of different factors, and government has to tackle those factors holistically to be able to start moving the needle in terms of closing the gap on tax evasion.
How, for instance, do you explain the fact that from the statistics now from Mr. Fowler saying about 6,000 Nigerian billionaires, don't pay their tax or have never filed tax returns? How do you explain that?
I think if you have a system where you can avoid taxes and you can evade taxes and get away with it, it's not surprising that you have 6,000 billionaires. Maybe they are more, maybe they are less. But the reality is that if you are a billionaire, you can't hide everything you have. So you have BVN, bank verification number, which shows how much money you have. You have money somewhere outside Nigeria. When you have money, you either do consumption, you do investment. People have landed property, they buy expensive cars. We can't say as a country that we do not know who is supposed to be paying taxes. In most countries, you find that the top 1% pays more income taxes than the rest of the population. So indeed, in Nigeria, the rich people are not paying their taxes, but I think that it is the fault of government allowing them to get away with not paying their taxes. Once government decides that everybody has to pay, those data and the numbers will be very different.
I can't but agree with you, because if these guys don't have collaborators from within the government, even within the tax authorities, it's difficult to see how they can get away with it.
Indeed.
All right, Mr. Oyedele, thank you very much for joining us on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's it on the program. But if you want to watch it again, it's simple. Just go to our website, tv360nigeria.com. You'll find this program and lots more there. You can also follow the conversation on our various social media platforms. Thank you very much for watching. I am DEJI. I'll see you next week.